Wasn't Big out at California 3-4 weeks and Snoop never saw him, but it was a whole lot of love? Come on, man.
Not true, Snoop Doggy Doggy Dog. Snoop Lion. That's what you should need to keep your name. Snoop Lion, because you always lying.
First of all, Snoop wasn't even next to us when that happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, he bugging. He knew damn well it wasn't like that.
So Snoop was nowhere around?
No.
When Snoop Dogg starts telling one of his stories, you can't help but listen. Whether it's about Tupac, Biggie, or just some random moment from back in the day, you're locked in.
I step away from him. Him and Nas right here, boom. Nas like, what's up, Pac?
But according to insiders, a lot of these stories are flat out made up. Over the years, Uncle Snoop has been called out multiple times for telling tales are either exaggerated, questionable, or downright ridiculous. Let's break it down. So, they always say there are 3 sides to every story. One person's side, the other person's side, and then the actual truth somewhere in between. Now, sometimes when 2 people are involved in something, a third person can step in and tell it straight. But also, if that third person wasn't even there or only knows bits and pieces, their version can end up way off. And that may have been the case with Snoop Dogg when he started telling his version of a supposed run-in between Nas and Tupac during the peak of the East Coast versus West Coast beef. To really understand this, we gotta rewind a little. On Nas's second album, It Was Written, the opening track, The Message, had that now famous line, "Fake thug, no love, you get the slug, CB for gusto." On the surface, it wasn't directed at anyone in particular, but somehow Pac thought it was aimed at him. And if you know Pac, once he felt disrespected, it was on. That misunderstanding ended up putting Nas on Pac's hit list, right there with Biggie, Puffy, and the whole Bad Boy camp. So by the time Pac flew into New York for the MTV Music Awards, the tension was already bubbling.
I heard he made a record about me, and he was in New York, and nobody from New York is really, they talk it, man, but all them companies don't really hold it down.
Now, here's where Snoop comes in with his version. According to him, when Tupac and the Death Row crew showed up, Nas pulled up deep, like really deep, rolling with about 100 guys from Queens. Snoop painted this picture where Pac is going off, cursing at Nas, throwing shots, basically clowning him, while Nas is just standing there calm, surrounded by all these dudes with him. In Snoop's words, Nas had the power to crush Pac and the whole Death Row crew right then and there, but instead, he chose peace.
But Nas didn't want none. But Nas had a with guns.
Right.
So listen to what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
By me saying he didn't want none didn't mean he didn't punk out. It mean he just didn't want to
go there.
Pac didn't even see them. I did, because I got a gangbang mentality. I seen start circling and
right,
putting their hands in their pockets while Pac is in this ear telling him, I made a song dissing you, Jay-Z, Biggie.
Snoop made it sound like Nas was the wise one, and Pac was this reckless hothead who didn't even realize how close he was to getting wiped out. But here's the kicker, Snoop wasn't even there at all.
When Tupac and Nas had to run in New York, right, at Bryant Park, was Snoop there? Because I seen some Snoop interviews and he said that he seen everything.
To be honest, bro, I don't recall Snoop being there. And the situation didn't go down nothing the way Snoop said it.
His whole story was pure fabrication, and the first person to call him out on it was Napoleon, one of Pac's close boys from the Outlaws, who was actually there that night. According to Napoleon, the way Snoop told it was straight up false. It wasn't some tense standoff where Nas's crew was ready to ambush them. In reality, when Pac and Nas crossed paths, there was no yelling, no insults, none of that. Napoleon said it was actually respectful. Both Pac and Nas talked like men, face to face. Pac explained his side, Nas explained his, and they ended up clearing the whole misunderstanding right then and there.
Pac wasn't cursing out Nas. We gonna keep it 100. You know what I mean? Pac wasn't disrespecting Nas at all. You know, I know Snoop said Pac punked Nas and then went to Snoop and said, you see how I got these New York dudes? None of that happened, bro. It was a mutual respect thing. When Pac and Nas met each other, it was nobody talking disrespect from both sides. Maybe the people behind Nas and the people behind Pac was mean mugging, saying certain things, but Pac and Nas handled it like real gentlemen, real, you know what I mean, real respect.
Pac even went as far as to promise that once he got back to LA, he would remove Nas's name from any diss tracks where it was mentioned. But unfortunately, Pac never got the chance to make that move because he was killed not long after. But the point is, there was no wild showdown like Snoop made it out to be. And if you think maybe Napoleon was just being loyal to Pac and spinning the story his way, then you only need to look at Nas himself. Nas later confirmed what really went down. He said, yeah, there was tension in the air, but it never played out the way Snoop described. Tupac never disrespected him to his face. They actually had a good conversation, squashed the beef, and walked away with mutual respect.
He had a great combo, man. He was like, you know, he explained that he thought I was dissing him, and he thought, and I, on the song, The Message, you know what I'm saying? He thought I was dissing him, and I wasn't even thinking about when I wrote that record. Just right, it was just going. You know what I'm saying? It was just going, hey, you know, just coming. So he thought that, and then I was like, well, I heard you was coming at me. I said, no, it was about you, but I heard you was coming at me, you know, back and forth.
Now, this isn't the only telltale Snoop has told. Another one Snoop likes to tell is about Tupac while he was locked up. According to Snoop, Pac was in danger behind bars, facing serious problems, and it was Snoop himself who convinced Suge Knight to step in and bail him out, basically saving Pac's life.
Was Tupac having issues when he was in prison? Because I know Snoop, he always say that he was hearing bad things, so he chose Suge Knight to get him out.
But once again, Napoleon from the Outlaws called cap on that story. He said Pac wasn't in danger at all during his prison time. On the contrary, people in prison respected Pac. He was making friends, taking pictures, and holding his own.
But that's a false narrative that I think Snoop was pushing. You know what I mean? Pac, for a fact, he wasn't really, he had a lot of, like, he used to send us pictures, and his pictures on the internet where he was taking pictures with New York dudes up in Clip. I guess people, they like to say that so then they can vouch for some other rumors that's being spread about Pac to try to put dirt on his name. You know what I mean? So it wasn't a fact that he was disliked, he was holding it down.
Napoleon even mentioned that during their visits, Pac never once complained about being threatened or unsafe. Did he want out of prison? Of course. Nobody wants to sit in a cell. But according to Napoleon, it wasn't because Snoop whispered in Suge Knight's ear to save him. That whole heroic Snoop angle just doesn't line up.
We used to go visit him monthly, some of us weekly. I can't recall him saying anything where he felt like he was in danger. You know what I mean? Like, not one time. He wanted to get the hell out of there. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, hey, I'm good. Y'all just go do your thing and leave me alone. No, he wanted to come home, but he definitely wasn't having any issues.
And Snoop's habit of rewriting history doesn't stop there. It extends to Biggie too. Snoop has always kept this image alive that he and Biggie Smalls were cool, almost like brothers, and that there was mutual love and respect between them. But Gene Deal, who was Puff Daddy's former bodyguard and had a front row seat to all of this, tells a completely different story. In an interview with the Art of Dialogue podcast, Gene basically said Biggie didn't mess with Snoop like that. He flat out claimed Biggie had no respect for Snoop and wasn't fond of him at all.
Big got in that studio and said, I don't know why this Snoop's calling me. I'm not telling this where I'm at.
Gene even questioned why. If Snoop was supposedly so close with both Biggie and Tupac, we didn't really see that closeness until after both of them passed. According to Gene, Snoop's stories about being the guy in the middle, the peacemaker, the one bridging East and West, are convenient narratives. They make Snoop look good in the media, like he was always the calm one trying to bring people together. But the truth, according to Gene, is that things weren't nearly as friendly as Snoop makes them sound. And according to Gene, Snoop's supposed bond with Biggie didn't even exist until after Pac died. Before that, it wasn't all love like Snoop makes it seem today. He questioned, wasn't Big out in California 3-4 weeks and Snoop never saw him? Snoop never came and smoked anything with him, never came and ate with him, but there was a lot of love? Come on, man.
When you be seeing these interviews with Snoop speaking on Biggie, how does that make you feel?
That's propaganda for the media, bro. Pac asked you was going to Vegas and the whole 9 yards, and he didn't say nothing to you, or he said some slick to you, or whatever, this, that, and the third. It wasn't all that love until Pac was dead. Wasn't Big out at California
Now, of course, Snoop has his own version of events. After Biggie's death in 1997, Snoop has often gone on record about how much he respected Big. For example, in a 2018 Rap Radar interview, Snoop shared this deep story about running into Biggie in Atlanta, sometime after Pac's death. According to Snoop, they had this real heart-to-heart conversation. He claims it was just the two of them. In that moment, Biggie supposedly opened up, telling Snoop how much he loved Pac and how he never wanted him dead. Snoop said Big admitted he had made mistakes, said things he shouldn't have, and actually apologized like a man. Snoop described it as a genuine moment of closure. He even went on to explain that he never fully blamed Biggie for the shooting incident that went down during Thaw Dog Pound's NYNY video shoot in Brooklyn. Back then, Death Row assumed Biggie's camp had something to do with it, but no one got hit, so they let it go. According to Snoop, once Biggie apologized, that was it. They squashed whatever beef was lingering, shook hands, and from that point on, they were cool again. But here's where Gene Deal throws cold water on the story. When asked if that Atlanta meeting really happened, Gene said he couldn't confirm it because he wasn't there. Still, he raised an eyebrow at the whole thing. What struck him as odd was this. If Snoop was supposedly hanging out one-on-one with Biggie in Atlanta, why didn't we ever see him around Big when Big was in Los Angeles? I can see you in Atlanta, but I can't see you in California, in my own hometown? So, you are saying you are so gangsta. You can roll up to Biggie's hotel room solo in Atlanta, but in California, you cannot see him? All right then, Gene said, clearly casting doubt on Snoop's version of events.
I wasn't there, brother. I don't know how accurate it is. That's a Lil C story. That's a Snoop Dogg story. But I can see you in Atlanta, but I can't see you in California at my own hometown? Huh?
And here's where the two-faced Snoop angle really starts to make sense for a lot of people. See, Gene Deal isn't the only one who's accused Snoop of being fake with his stories. Tupac himself actually called him out on it while he was still alive. What many people don't know is that by the time Pac died, he and Snoop weren't even on good terms anymore. Their relationship had completely fallen apart.
What about Snoop?
What about him? It's an open, free business. But I just know he'll have more problems without us than he would with us.
Insiders who were around back then say part of the tension came down to jealousy. Before Pac signed to Death Row, Snoop was the star of the label. He was Suge Knight's golden boy, the face of West Coast rap, the one everybody looked to. But when Pac came home from prison and joined the camp, all of that changed overnight. Pac had this larger-than-life energy, dropped music at a crazy pace, and instantly became the center of attention. The spotlight shifted, and according to a lot of people who were close to the situation, Snoop didn't handle that too well.
When Tupac joined Death Row, was Snoop jealous of Tupac joining Death Row?
Snoop definitely was a little razzled because he used to be in Snoop Dogg. And when Pac came, he demanded all the attention and got it.
That jealousy started seeping into little things, and eventually, it blew up in a big way. The breaking point for their friendship came after Pac released his infamous diss track, Hit 'Em Up. At that time, the war between Death Row and Bad Boy was at an all-time high. Everybody had chosen sides, and tensions were boiling over. In 1996, when the Death Row camp was in New York for the MTV Video Music Awards, Snoop's behavior started raising eyebrows. First, he skipped out on a scheduled rehearsal for Saturday Night Live with Pac, which was already a red flag. Then, he made a move that completely blindsided Tupac. Snoop went on a local New York radio station and told the world, "I got nothing but love for Biggie and Puffy." Now, you gotta understand how deep the beef was at this point. For Snoop to say something like that, while standing in New York of all places, was like a slap in Pac's face. But according to people who were there, it wasn't just the words that stung. What really burned Pac was the fact that just days before, Snoop had been right there in the studio with him, laying down diss tracks aimed directly at Biggie and Puff. One minute he's riding with Pac on wax, throwing shots, and the next, he's smiling on the radio saying he's got love for them. To Pac, that was betrayal.
Pac was angry not only because they said, not just because of that interview. A couple weeks before that, people don't know that Pac and Snoop did songs dissing Biggie. I remember hearing it. But Pac looking at it like, come on, man, you were just in LA dissing him with me. Now you on the radio saying something different. You know what I mean? So I think that triggered some type of attention, you know, which was
I think it would have worked this way itself out. Pac had he did definitely have love for Snoop.
Sadly, before they could ever sit down and really hash it out, Pac was killed in Vegas. After his death, Snoop tried to explain his side of things. He said in interviews that the reason they never reconciled was because Pac just didn't understand him. According to Snoop, he never had hate for Biggie, never wanted to see Big get hurt, and Pac couldn't see that.
You know, I don't think we was really on good terms before he died, because he didn't really understand the way I didn't really have no hate towards Biggie. I didn't really feel like he should continue to, to get at Biggie.
But here's where a lot of fans and insiders still call foul. If Snoop truly never had a problem with Biggie, then why was he in the booth helping Pac record diss tracks? Why play both sides? Why say one thing to Pac in the studio, then turn around and tell the media the exact opposite? To many people, it looked like Snoop was trying to protect his own image, acting like he was cool with everybody while letting Pac be the one out front taking all the heat. And when Pac got upset, Snoop brushed it off like Pac was just overreacting, when in reality, it was Snoop who was sending mixed messages. But as messy as things were while Pac was alive, what Snoop did after Pac's death had people shaking their heads even more. A lot of folks see it as one of his biggest betrayals. See, there's this name that always pops up when people talk about Pac's murder, Big Dre, from the Southside Compton Crips. Most people point the finger at Orlando Anderson as the trigger man, but there's a strong belief from some insiders that Big Dre was actually the real shooter that night in Vegas. Now here's the crazy part. What did Snoop do after Pac was gone? He worked with him. Not long after Pac died, Big Dre started up his own label called Runoff Records. He dropped a mixtape called Hard White that somehow pulled in some serious features: Warren G, MC8, and Snoop Dogg himself. When that news hit the streets, it set off a firestorm. People were asking the obvious questions. Where did Big Dre suddenly get that kind of bread to pay for those names? And more important, why would Snoop of all people agree to work with someone who might have been connected to Pac's murder? To a lot of Pac's fans, that spoke volumes. It felt like Snoop was showing his true colors, like maybe Pac's death didn't mean as much to him as he wanted people to believe.
Suge Knight revealing that, Snoop, he worked with Big Dre after Tupac got killed. And when I heard that, man, that was wild. For you to be working with somebody that was in the car with Keefy D when Tupac got shot, that's crazy, man.
That's crazy, bro. Like, if you know this dude 100% is in a car with a person that killed your boy, and you do a song with him, it just really shows how you always felt about Pac.
And once people started calling him out, Snoop began to switch his whole tune. Suddenly, every time he did an interview, he was showering Pac with love, acting like they were inseparable, best of friends until the end. To many, it looked less like honesty and more like damage control. And it doesn't stop there. Another pattern people have noticed is Snoop's tendency to exaggerate his own gangster stories. Nobody denies that Snoop really came up in the streets. He's affiliated with the Rollin' 20 Crips, so his credentials are legit. But the problem is, he has a habit of taking real-life experiences and stretching them into movie scripts that make him sound bigger, badder, and bolder than the truth. Take the whole Training Day story, for example. Snoop once claimed that while filming the movie, he had ordered a blue tracksuit for his wardrobe, but when he showed up on set, he realized they were shooting in a blood-controlled neighborhood, enemy turf. According to Snoop's version, he calmly asked to speak to the local OG. He said the guy rolled up in a wheelchair, just like the character he was playing in the movie. To keep the peace, Snoop claimed he bought $300 worth of weed from the dude, and just like that, the set was all good.
The movie with Denzel, before I got the scene, right? They said, what you want to wear in the movie? I'm like, give me a blue sweatsuit, let me get to my blue chucks. They didn't tell me where it was. We get to the there's 100,000 bloods on the corner. I'm in a wheelchair like that. Damn. It's everywhere. What's up, blood? What up, blood? What up, Snoop Dogg, blood? What up, blood? Standing on me. I rolled away. I went in that little wig shop. I said, hey, man, go find the OG from here and bring that down here. Got to shoot 3-4 days in a row. No harm, no foul. Gotta know how to politic.
But then, the real story eventually came out, and it was nothing like Snoop described. Instead of Snoop brokering peace like some street diplomat, the Bloods in that neighborhood weren't having it. They started causing problems, even throwing bottles at Snoop's trailer, trying to intimidate him. And while Snoop was ducked off inside, it was somebody else who stepped up to actually defuse the situation. That somebody else was Spice One, a pioneer in gangsta rap who just happened to get the call. According to Spice One, one of his OG Crip homies rang him up and let him know things were about to go left. Bloods were outside Snoop's trailer, causing chaos.
Throwing, bottles at Snoop trailer. He didn't say blood, because, he ain't gonna say that, but, that's what he tell me. And I barely understand him, but I got it. I understood it. Since the OG said go over there and holler at him and try to calm him down, because I think they was throwing bottles at the trailer, at Snoop's trailer.
So Spice One pulled up to the set, and the moment the Bloods saw him, the vibe shifted. They knew who he was, and that recognition alone was enough to calm things down a notch. Spice didn't go in there acting hard or barking orders. He just kept it cool, talked to them, and let them know the cops were gonna come heavy if things escalated. Nobody wanted to catch a case that night, so the Bloods agreed to back off. They ended up sliding around the corner, sparking up some weed, and chilling out until the police did a quick sweep and left. Once the coast was clear, Spice circled back to Snoop's trailer. They kicked it, smoked a little, and Snoop had no clue how close things had come to blowing up outside. So while Snoop still gets his flowers and respect in hip-hop, these kinds of revelations have put a huge dent in his reputation.